Tenet.
Hi, everything club. Welcome to the after.
Something wrong.
After a few delays of the movie over the summer, but a theater nearby me opening up and giving early access to a few nights of the screenings of this movie, I was finally able to go out to get my movie and Nolan fix and finally see Tenet. And since Tenet has mostly released to other parts of the world and has very limited release here in America, I went over to another state where another theater had opened up and it had a few nights only early access to the movie. I went over to that theater to check this movie out. And to the rest of about half the world's population who hasn't been able to see the movie and want kind of another person's take on it, some idea of what to expect going into this movie, I'll give you here my own spoiler-free thoughts on the movie. Now first, I won't shy away from the fact that this movie is tough. This movie is quite difficult. It's not too different from Nolan's kind of conventional digging deep into this crazy weird concept and weaving it through this plot and having all these different characters attached to the plot for different reasons and pursuing each other for different reasons and having this crazy weird emotional character arc going on with the main characters who in the end up changing in some radical way and the plot and the overall concept changing things in some radical way. But still, this movie takes the basic nuggets that kind of spells out for you and then just runs with it and snowballs with it throughout the rest of the movie and just exploiting everything that could go on with the concept, everything that can go on with this theoretical physics idea and just rolling it further and further into these bigger and bigger things. It goes from 0 to 10 to 100 pretty quickly and introduces a couple of new technologies to you relatively quickly. Things just kind of happen with those technologies and now the characters are moving around in different ways. Inversion is happening around in different ways and now you're keeping track of a couple of different timelines that are happening at once, a couple of different inversion sequences that are happening at once. Most of us Nolan fans not only know about but are looking forward to the high and deep concepts that he has in his movies and all the different character connections happening in his movies that then unravels the plot in these crazy, substantial, and profound, mind-blowing ways. Tenet does that a little bit more quickly and with a lot more interweaving and with a lot more character connections, sort of like Inception and maybe a bit like Interstellar, times 5 or even times 10 in a little bit less or what feels like kind of a shorter run time, even though this is 2.5 hours, which is actually still pretty average for a Christopher Nolan movie. Now, seeing Inception for the first time, I felt even as abstract and dreamlike, of course, as that movie is, I could track with that a lot better. That's a lot slower pace and introduces characters at a lot easier pace and things felt a little bit more natural, if you will, with being introduced to characters and understanding what their roles are and what they were sort of going to do and trying to do in the movie. And I was really attached and really hooked into the psychological dream concepts of the movie. Tenet, a little bit different. I kind of picked up the basics that were being introduced and the characters go into these crazy heist scenes, a lot of really fun action, a lot of really fun, crazy spectacle and action going on screen. Then a new technology and another kind of aspect or concept of the theoretical physics is introduced at the same time. Weird things are happening and now characters are pursuing other characters to acquire other kinds of information. While I do enjoy Nolan movies having that element of surprise and unpredictability where you literally only know enough about the movie up to the point where you are at in the movie and you can't figure out or predict everything going on after or toward the end. Tenet definitely had that nature with me where I really only understood up to the point in the movie that I was watching. I couldn't predict any further. I couldn't see, okay, these characters have to do these things and we'll be happily ever after. Everything was like stopping short right where I was at in the movie and I had to watch everything unfold and watch the characters pursue the other goals and get further information and everything. So I'm moving along in the movie with these characters, which is kind of a fun way of watching these movies and a fun way that no one structures and writes these movies of the unpredictability aspect and not sure of where things are going in a good way. Still left me behind about halfway through the movie. I was still figuring out how the concept worked, how the inversion works, and how they were using inversion to complete their missions and why these huge things were going on with the inversion and forward movements. And so everything was just sort of unfolding in the movie in these really cool, spectacular, and fun ways, of course. But I was still waiting and watching for the movie to play out before me and play out and unravel everything to the point that it finally starts to wrap itself up, conclude, and end, and just kind of leave me still with that big question mark above my head. Even having seen the movie twice, I still don't totally understand everything that is happening. I kind of understand the basics a little bit. I think I've learned to use my imagination a little bit more with the technology and how the different timelines move back together, but I've really just noticed a couple of extra details that were really interesting and helped some things click a little bit better and helped me keep track of timelines and characters in better ways, but it's not like Inception or any of the previous Nolan films where you're like, okay, I got it. I think I can recite pretty much the whole movie right out to you, having seen it a couple times, having seen it a lot more and picked up on a lot more things I did not get from the first first time, it's difficult for me to summarize even much of the basics at this point. Despite you inevitably getting lost in this movie, I think this is a good movie to get lost in all the different crazy action sequences. And it's not like things are happening for no reason. It's not like, here, this crazy car chase because car chases are fun. Here, this plane that's crashing into this building because planes crashing into a building are fun. There is more or less of a rhyme or reason, or more or less of a rhyme or method that's being done in these sequences, that there is something at large trying to be accomplished, and something at large that the missions are trying to do, that this catastrophic thing then sets off this other mission to accomplish this other thing. There is more or less a method to the madness going on in the movie. I can still tell that the characters were after something, that they were trying to get on these different missions in these different ways. So I was still having a fun time, even like I said earlier, my understanding pretty much stopped and blocked about halfway through, but I still had a tremendously fun time and a great time, especially in the second half of the movie. All these crazy inverted stuff and physical stuff happening later in the movie. I had some good laughs here and there, some decent hits of humor that Nolan usually cleverly does in his movies. I had some good chuckles at the "you want to crash a plane" conversation that Robert Pattinson and John David Washington have, that's teased in the second trailer for this movie. That scene in that conversation had some good chuckles from me the couple of times I saw the movie, so some decent Nolanite clever humor that's in this movie. The film score by Ludwig Göransson is perfect for this movie. The synthesizers, the electronic sounds, the electronic music, the weird warped sounds and weird warped music that go with the uncanny and strange nature of the time and physics stuff going on in this movie. Some forward and backward sounding music that are integrated into the inversion nature of some of the scenes, and to give it kind of that unnatural and uncanny and backwards thinking, inside out type of brain feel to the music, makes it kind of uncanny, under the skin crawling, and just that weird electronic music sensation that you might get from electronic music or EDM music with the inverse keyboard type of music going on. Some really cool and really striking score going on in this movie. Christopher Nolan has really come a long way from his first micro $7,000 budget, shot on weekends and still edited in a non-linear fashion, and became his first relatively known first feature film following, and now making a really mentally taxing and mentally challenging movie that some have even criticized as self-indulging, or Christopher Nolan getting too self-obsessed with himself and his own grand ideas, that he can take this grand idea and do all these different crazy things from that in a short period of time, and kind of skip the attachment from the audience and skip the important information for us normals and layman moviegoers to see this movie and understand sort of the things going on. He's still one of the few directors who make his own movies his own way and makes his own really highly sciencey movies that still go onto theaters, and the rest of you still come in to watch, and the rest of you still come in to see what bigger thing that he's doing, what crazier ideas going on next, and what crazier ways is he going to put that into the plot, and what crazier plots and stories, and what crazier movie is he doing with this crazy idea. This is one of the most complex films in Nolan's arsenal, a really good and actually really fun mental exercise. This is a really great theater movie and a must-see theater movie. I would give Tenet an A-. When theaters start to open more publicly, or maybe a theater near you opens up and is showing this movie, go ahead and give this a check out. It's a really good watch and a really worthwhile watch, even as weird and as complex it is. It's a really good and worthwhile watch for sure. The less you know about this movie, the better, so try not to read too much into it and try not to watch too many reviews on it. Welcome back to the movies. It's not a superhero movie, it's not a sequel, it's not a remake, it's not something cheap or extra. It's cinematic substance. So until later, when I end up in someone else's bathroom with an empty wine bottle in my hands, keep watching and keep making things.